All right, we are back again, episode 4 of the Hot Plate.
Dude, I love it.
Some definitely good stuff for today. Rob, we were talking earlier, some things you learned this week.
Yeah, just some things I learned this week. I mean, so many things. My week was action packed, but just I had an opportunity to have two retros that were really funny and impactful. Both kind of retros with two separate kind of engagements or situations. Historically have been more ceremonial and kind of more just by the numbers, like just not extremely they were purposeful. I mean, they're valuable, but I mean, they just weren't a full blown like let's just let our hair down and like talk about the things that are wrong so we could solve them.
Are
And
these clients of yours or teams that you're on? What sort of
teams
group?
that I'm on, yeah, teams that I'm
Okay.
on. And so this week we just had like two super raw ones that were awesome. Like for one team that I'm on. It was just hilarious. We were just like riffing on some of the things we haven't really had a chance to reflect on, and we kind of identified, next steps to solve some of those problems. And it demonstrated the value of like just being honest and transparent about the situation. And it's not like while taking care of each other and while like, making sure you're not offending people or just being considerate of people's feelings, but it's really funny. It was just great. Like I got to let my hair down and just like kind of say some things I've been wanting to give, the team feedback on, and it was great. It was just felt really empowering.
And so, what do you think will be the biggest change you'll see as a result?
Just like I think the confidence, hopefully, in some of the stakeholder management of the team a little bit, where like you actually lose value by not being opinionated and just kind of placating someone's perspective. Like you just lose leverage, you lose the ability to advocate for the team, you lose the ability to protect team members and protect their time and things like that. So like people are like, oh yeah, that's whenever you hear feedback about like some type of like leader, program manager, project manager, product manager, whoever's like running the show, they're like, oh yeah, is the person's really friendly, they're easy to interface with and all this stuff. Sometimes like that's actually like, not super positive because they shouldn't always be that easy to work with. They should be like kind of the bulldogs that are guarding the team. And so that's always like a hidden red flag where normally people are like, oh, that's cool. They must be liked. And it's like PMs aren't supposed to be liked. They're supposed to be efficient and they're supposed to like protect your investments and they're supposed to make sure things are happening and like your resources are well resourced and happy and willing to keep, you know, paddling if it was like a ship or something.
Yeah, yeah. The goal is that they love you at the end. That's all that matters. And they can hate you throughout, but you're right. If I've seen it a lot of times where who's ever running the project or the PM or, whoever, if their goal is to be liked throughout and
Yeah.
they don't call out issues or make the hard decisions, then, the client likes you, likes you, likes you, likes you, then the project fails and they hate you. And so
Yep.
much better to have the fights as you go.
That I mean, what you just described in that simplest form is the story of the DoD and like software delivery, right? Like
Hmm.
years upon years of program managers getting hired that are friends with people, and they're able to like keep the asset out of the air for a bit, and then but they're not kind of putting an emphasis on scoping requirements or accountability both externally and internally, and like really kind of just making sure that the thing that they're building is like feasible, like highest ROI, very valuable. And, like they just kind of, brush shoulders with people. They're fun to see out at conferences. And then the project fails and they kind of just find the next company and the next program manager that has that same archetype. And they
Hmm.
repeat the same cycle until the next failure. And then they reset it. And that's why you see some of these projects like every 3 years resetting or every year resetting and pivoting. And everyone's like, wow, I thought that was delivered and done. Why is this RFP back on the street? And it's like just sad. Like it's just it's unnecessarily hard, I guess.
Yeah. And it can go on perpetually because the government's not going to go out of business. If
Yeah, exactly.
when
Like,
companies do that, eventually they run out of money and they fail and it at least it ends. And those people might go to another company and do the same thing. But to
or
your point,
learn
the
from it,
endless What?
or learn for it
Or
from
learn?
it.
Yes,
Like their
yes.
project fails, they get kind of either asked to leave or they end up leaving because whatever for whatever reason, but they walk away from it like, wow, that was weird. Like I wonder if I had anything to do with that. And then they do some soul searching. That's how I view stuff. I always, whenever there's a
Hmm.
situation that's not doing well, whether like I'm the leader of it or a contributor or whatever, I'm always like, what am I like not doing well here? And a lot of times it's like, I'm not, as diligent as I can about details or doing things that, X, Y, and Z. But sometimes it's just like I'm not voicing my opinion and like calling BS on things and being an
Hmm.
advocate for truth and transparency and like accuracy. And that's like, so yeah, what you just described is the case like almost all the time. And it's unfortunate, right? Because like you were saying, it's not like the money runs out, even more kind of sinister and weird. It's like, oh, like we need more next time. And like, so the whole cycle repeats for 2x the cost and it just gets weirder and bigger and harder to achieve and it's just sad and like everyone's comfortable with like it being this never-ending cycle of like ending up with nothing, which freaks me out.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, to that point, as people kind of look for solutions and how to break that cycle. What shifted for you that made this week's retros and discussions that much different? Like what changed that caused those you'd have a different result?
I think just like the stakeholders who were involved in these retros, and we like did it outside of our downstream, like not on the same call as our customer, where it was like a safer space, and we could all just be ourselves a little bit and like talk about some of the challenges. And we had some prompts because we got some feedback, but it's like we were able to just be more real about what are the things that aren't helping us succeed or contributing to value, or what are the things that are good and how can we leverage them, even if they were just like optics related. Like how can we leverage this perception to like make stakeholder management easier or get a better outcome, right? Because people are so interesting. Like I think we talked about or touched on this in the last call when I was talking about that new like CRM style tool, but
Hmm.
it's like perception is so important. Like even if you're 100% right and your architecture is like strategically kind of sequenced when you're building it or something, you have all the details you need, or you're managing the risk as effectively as you possibly can. Like if somebody just doesn't like you, it's going to be so hard to kind of communicate that strategy or work with them. So if you notice that and like you're trying to change things about your personality, or you're just trying to summarize things differently and they're still just like very biased towards like not being a fan, then sometimes you just have to have other people deliver that message. Like hilariously on for one of the situations, like I've just been super busy. I started my company. I'm like a fractional asset on this one thing. And there was this person that was like giving an overview of like, their capability area. And I had to step out of the room and take a call. And they had that kind of like dojo senpai mentality where it's like, how dare you like not stay and listen to like my explanation of this thing. So as soon as I did that, regardless of if I stayed and like caught up or like swept the floors or mopped the floors or whatever, I would never regain that like honor. And
Hmm.
so like like it took me too long to recognize that, and I was like, oh, that's why like these conversations are harder than they need to be. Like somebody else could simply deliver that message, or they can replace me with somebody else. But like that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you just can't win. And like being honest and transparent about like what the challenges are and what levers you have to pull to be able to resolve those challenges, I think like just empowers teams. And this retro, we were able to talk through some of that.
That's great. That sounds not the same, but like adjacent to an experience I had this week where I had heard this phrase before, but it didn't quite sink into what it meant of like rock old school rock tumblers where you put just these rough rocks that just look like rocks and some grit and a little liquid in these tumblers, and then you spin it around and they just smash into each other and smash into each other, and then you open it up, I don't know, the next night, overnight, the next day, and you've got these like really cool gems in there.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and it's from this like, they call it this helpful friction, or that it
Mm,
works. And so had a few experiences this week talking to someone where I was like, I think we should do this. And they're like, that's a terrible idea. I think we should do this. And I'm like, well, that's a terrible idea. And we kind of just talked through these terrible ideas.
yeah.
And at the end of it, we came out with a third, a totally new idea that we both said, now that's a good idea,
Dude, I love
but
that.
neither of us rocks, on our own, would have come up with it. And it was only by the, banging together, but with the grit and the oil, which is effectively the respect and commitment, to work together, it, 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 it came out. And so it was kind of cool because like after it, we kind of paused and said, what just happened? And then actually discussed, the rock tumbler process, and then we're like, oh, we just did it. That was it. That's what people have been talking about of this helpful friction.
That's
So
amazing. Well, what's the foundation of helpful friction?
just I mean, again, like in the sense that like um, it's in that energy. It's how to harness that energy to create something better, to polish the rocks. Yeah.
And I think that energy starts like the foundation is like psychological safety, right? And trust.
Yeah, because
Which,
you're about to just butt heads, and you have to
yeah,
do it knowing, no, this is good. We're not
100%.
fighting. We're not fighting.
But if you don't have that, right? Like the normal way
Hmm.
that people that are trying to like have a successful outcome from that tumbling, when
Hmm.
the outcome isn't something like whatever we're ideating on needs to be better as a system and it needs to
Hmm.
like there's criteria for success, right? Or something that is optimal. It's like the thing works well and it solves like this really interesting problem and hopefully it can scale and solve more than just that problem. But like what I'm saying, like those are the desired outcomes. But if you don't have that psychological safety, it becomes like two humans. How does someone get out of this situation with the upper hand? And it has nothing to do with the outcomes. And that without that psychological safety, that foundation, it's huge. Like psychological safety is like a weird word that people like joke about or have opinions about. It means a lot to me. It's like I'm going to call him out. So Dylan Brown, shout out to Dylan Brown, my homie, my PM dog. He's great. Like learned so much from him. I've seen him go from like, acquisitions contracting officer to program manager to chief of staff to like ruthless product manager in a very high stressful situation to like, Fang or, a Fang equivalent senior product manager that's like influencing hiring decisions and like guiding the company where they need to go next. Like killer, like actually just like really did super well. But him and I had that rock tumbler relationship that you described where we can riff for a while. And, compared to some other, you're making me think about some other situations outside of the other one that I was just describing, not Dylan, the one prior to that about like the retros, but there's a situation where somebody kind of like pitched a capability or technology and it's like, well, there isn't anything incredibly novel about that. I want to give that feedback and say like you're like 6 steps away from something that's like commercializable or whatever, like something that is unique. Like you just need to scope it a little bit. But I don't have that psychological safety. There's still that like buffer of ego there where it's like, what stinks? I have to let them like fail their way to like whatever I could
Hmm.
potentially recommend details wise to maybe save them time and money just because I don't want to like affect our friendship because we don't have that psychological safety. But with
Right.
Dylan, him and I are just like, yo, we can riff. What are the things we need to do? Why won't they work? What's the, total addressable market? What's the total serviceable market? Have real conversations about data and like likelihood of success, like so fluid.
Yeah. Also, that totally dovetails into something I've been thinking about as well that I've realized having made this mistake, a number of times this week and many times in the past, as well as this notion of you have to let people learn things for themselves. Um, if you have just visited some town and you have a bad experience, and a friend says, "Hey, I want to go visit that town," and if you try to convince them from your experience, no, it's bad. You don't want to go there. Don't do it. You think you're helping them, but you're not. Because if you win that argument, they're still going to resent you, even if subconsciously, that you didn't let them try something they wanted to try. And whereas if you just let them go and support them on their way there, one, they may have a great time. They're not you. So they're different people. And
Yeah.
two, if it goes poorly, they'll have learned something. And what they'll remember is that you supported them in their journey to do something. Um, and it's what you've learned in life and through experience and things. It's like use that to guide you, but you have to help others find their own way.
Yeah.
It's such a trap of thinking, oh, I can help this person, from my experiences, and
Yeah.
everybody's got to touch the stove.
And
Um,
summarizing it, like, or just the way you communicate it too. Like, you can just be like, "Hey, side note," you could probably, even if you have like a strong opinion about something, you can
mhm,
dilute it to something that's not threatening or not like your
right.
idea versus theirs. It's kind of like, here's just like some additional information that you might want to consider. Step away, maybe subconsciously they incorporate that into their strategy or something. There's definitely an approach there. But yeah, dude, I love the rock tumbler settings. I mean, that's when you build like, generational products, I think, that like change the world, change
Yeah.
domains.
And to your
So
point
totally.
with the relationship and the safety, again, if you don't have that, what happens when you just smash two rocks together? Like one of them is going to break, or
Yeah,
both. Like it's you got to have the set and setting for that all to work. Uh,
dude. Yes.
cool, cool. Well, that sounds awesome. I'm glad you had that for you this week. Hopefully that will continue.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. Well, I got to run. This has been great. We'll do it again soon.
I love it. Well,
All
thank you
right.
so much, Mark. This is fun.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob.
All right.